Welcome to Rugby League fans and a regular session now on Sportsfan Radio will be me talking with Paul Dalligan about what's been happening in league during the week and getting some of his famous prognostications for this week's rounds. Paul, plenty happening in league since we last spoke.
Well, there is, and the biggest deal in rugby league history has landed. Dylan Brown, $13 million, if you don't mind, for 10 years. So these contracts were unheard of in days gone by, but it seems now the 10-year deal is par for the course. You'd remember when the Swans signed Buddy Franklin for 10 years, and everyone thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. That turned out very well for the Swans, and I think he even went round after the 10 years. But let's hope for the Knights that this will turn out well. It's an unfortunate situation that the clubs at that level, they're not quite contenders. They need to do this sort of thing. And this will be what has to happen from now because there's just not enough halfback talent around. He's not worth 1.3 million a year, but that's what they had to pay to get in there. He liked Parramatta. He was raised in Parramatta. 15-year-old, he started there. I feel he owes Parramatta because they stuck by him in some off-field times. But loyalty doesn't speak as loud as money, Professor.
So the question we can ask about Dylan Brown's contract with the Eels is when is an 8-year contract not an 8-year contract? And that's when there are terms in the contract that says, well, if you want to get out after a certain number of years, you can get out, which is what he's doing.
Yeah, I think his managers will be having a big weekend because they've even included a clause as the salary cap goes up, the salary will go up for him, even though he's on 1.3 million a year. So very well done to those managers. A lot of people are stunned about the money that's paid, but he's on the market and the market price is what you're worth. So I was very interested with the coach, was very stern about not wanting to discuss it rather than being excited about the arrival, possibly because there is a 10-day period that you can pull out, a cooling off clause, as we call it. So whether there's nerves that he'll pull out, I don't know why he would with that sort of money, but that will turn the Knights into a top 4 team, I think, seriously.
How would you like to be the salary cap manager at the Knights? You've got Kalen Ponga and his contract, and now you've got Dylan Brown. How much money have they got tied up in 2 players, and how much is for the rest? Because
Well,
when I last saw it, Paul, you needed more than 2 players to win a game of rugby league.
you do, and the rumours started straight away that Ponga wouldn't be happy about it. I think he's still the highest paid player at the Knights, Kalen Ponga, but I've heard rumours he might be going to rugby union, so we'll see what happens. But this deal would have been on the basis that this guy, Dylan Brown, is going to be playing with Ponga. They've got a gun player, Fletcher Sharp, who'll be playing in the halves with him. But keep in mind, Dylan Brown's a 6, and he's being signed to play a 7, which is a big difference, that one number in rugby league. So that's the largest part, I think, of people's incredulity, being stunned by this deal because he's being signed to do something he doesn't do at the moment.
All right, Paul, let's perhaps just have a quick look at the last round. The Broncos put in 50 against the Roosters. The Broncos were playing away with, just unbelievable start for Michael Maguire and his men.
Yeah, my pre-season tip to win it all, and I'm not backing off from that at all. I don't think they'll have a fall this week down at Canberra, but we will be interested to see, given some of the other results, whether they can keep that form up. It's a very, very open competition, as we're seeing from some of the results.
Selwyn Cobbo, a hat-trick of tries, and Adam Reynolds just basically doing what he liked.
Yes, he had it on a string, and we thought that might happen there. Ben Hunt as well played very well, so it was a great game. They're very entertaining to watch, the Broncos. If you watch this Broncos team, and I'll also put the Storm in there, and don't enjoy it, well, you just don't enjoy rugby league because the standard they're playing is incredible.
Would have been a shock for Roosters players and Roosters fans because they actually scored the first try of the match to lead 4-0, winning at halftime 20-4 down.
Yes, it was just an avalanche. But then we've seen, if I can jump to this week, we've seen the Roosters bounce back against the 4-time defending champions, the Panthers. That stunned me. That was last night. So it shows how even this competition is. It's going to be some sort of comp.
Well, we might just stay on that one because it is a past result, Paul.
Yeah.
Penrith playing at Parramatta Stadium, not their home ground. Why was that?
They're rebuilding that stadium at Penrith, adding a couple of thousand extra seats. So they're playing in the local area still, but just up down the road to Parramatta. So maybe they lost some homegrown advantage. That's a very strange outcome, that one. In days gone by, we'd think they were having a bet at 10-1 on the opponent to pay for their end-of-season trip, but we wouldn't suggest that these days, of course. The players are too well paid and they can fund their own end-of-season trip. But the Roosters would have been $10 in that game, and it's the biggest upset in years.
Well, and is it, or can we say that there's the US trip might have come home to roost in that the Penrith Panthers had a long time to think about their next match. They didn't play last week, whereas the Roosters did.
Well, come home to roost. Very nicely done there, Professor, with the Roosters getting up. It's one of the best wins I've seen from the Roosters in years, and they should be justifiably proud of that. The Panthers were terrible. I just didn't think that I was watching a team that had won the last 4 premierships. Everyone has a bad day, but that was a shocker.
Going back to round 1, Paul, you said the Eels weren't going to have a good season, and the Melbourne Storm made sure they got off to that sort of start. 56-18, that's a thrashing.
It is, and they're getting close to wooden spoon odds, Parramatta Eels. They're going to have a tough year, and losing one of your best players, if not the best player, doesn't help morale. So I would not want to be an Eels fan. I really feel for them. They're a proud, powerful club, but they're going to finish close to the bottom of the table. I mean, who's below them? Maybe Tigers, Titans, Dragons, Dolphins, perhaps, but it's not a good time to be an Eels fan, sadly.
And the Cowboys put in a shocker against the Sea Eagles. That's just the sort of thing that Manly and Schooner would have loved to start the season, a 42-12 romp at Fortress Manly.
The way that this season's going, though, you wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys bounce back and beat the Sharks. So I'm not tipping that to happen, but it's been a very up and down competition. They were very bad, though, the Cowboys, and they'll struggle to make the 8 on that form.
Now, Paul, I can't let this part of the program go without talking about your Rabbitohs. They got off to a flyer. The Dolphins hit the front late in the last half. Did you think that it was all over, or did you think that the Rabbitohs, as they did, would pull it out?
No, we won, and it was class shown. It was a good result. I have to say, though, that the Dolphins are now significant favourites to be wooden spooners. So it's a tough time for the Dolphins. They've got a new coach there. I'm not sure about their signing. I don't think I picked them to make the 8, but they're not a great team. So I'll wait to see how we go against the Dragons today before I make any comments on the Rabbitohs. But that was a good win. A win's a win, as they say.
Well, that's all you can do, isn't it? And the old coach getting the first game win against his old team.
Yes, Wayne Bennett magic again. And I have to point out that the Storm, who haven't lost a round 1 game in about 20 years, I don't think they've lost a round 1 game under Craig Bellamy's watch. They demolished the Eels, and they are a very good team to watch. It's really good to watch the Storm this year. They're going to go very close to winning it. It was so impressive. They're easily favourites now. I stand by my Broncos prediction, but wow, they were amazing. And apparently it was one of the biggest bloodbaths for bookies in 10 years. The amount of money that was on the Storm to win and win well. And it was, as Gilding would say, it was hard held. It was a pretty easy win for those on it.
Well, let's face it, when the scoreline is 46-6 at half time, it's all downhill from there, isn't it?
People were in the queue lining up to get their winning tickets paid out at that stage. So
cash out.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Storm this year. They are a very, very attractive team at all facets, and it could be Craig Bellamy's swan song. Who knows? But you wouldn't bet against the Storm winning it, and it's exciting to be here and watch that team. They were amazing last week. We'll see how they go. They've got to bye this week, but see how they go next week.
Now, looking at your 2025 predictions, Paul, you had the Rabbitohs below the Dolphins. That might change given the recent results.
It will, yeah. And I'm impressed with this Humphreys. We've got this kid from Manly at half. We had some injuries, which we're worried about, but it looked good. And I was impressed. If we beat the Dragons today, I'll be even more impressed.
So on Thursday night, Paul, the Knights got their second win for the season, taking the Dolphins apart. That's the Dolphins' second loss as well. So do you see the Knights possibly making the 8 given the start they've got?
Yeah, they may well do. And with the excitement about Dylan Brown, and everyone will be playing for their spot, playing for whatever salary cap's left. As you said, after those two players, it can't be much. Hansel and Gretel crumbs, I think, after those two players' salaries come out at each week at the bucket. But the Knights are good to watch, and they're a good team and a good city. So exciting stuff.
Now, the Warriors bounced back against the Sea Eagles. Schooner wouldn't be too happy about that. 36-16. That's a huge reversal, isn't it?
It is, and I think everyone thought Manly would win that, but maybe Manly aren't as good as we thought after that round one. They're too inconsistent, I think, to be pushing for top four. I think they'll make the eight just, but I don't think they're up there with the Storm, Broncos, and Sharks of this league.
So is it a case of the Warriors, Lions at home and Lambs away?
Well, it is. Yeah, they're probably the most erratic team in the NRL. On their day, they can do anything, and that has stayed the same, even though they lost 3 or 4 of their longest-serving players. It's a team ethos that they just seem to be unpredictable, but exciting to watch. That was a demolition job, though. Manly came in with a great form and a tough loss for Schooner.
All right, let's look at today's games, Paul. The first one, the Dragons playing your Rabbitohs.
Yeah.
Who's going to win this one and why? And I see that wry grin on your face.
I don't want you to ask me that for a tip against my team. I think the line's cutting out. I'll say this, the Dragons are a much better team. I'll be surprised if we win. Can I call it a draw? 18-all draw.
So historically, how have the Rabbitohs fared when they've travelled down the highway to Wollongong?
Yeah, well, it's a tough ground, but it hasn't been as tough the last few years. I don't think that will be intimidating. It's more about the Dragons team. I think the Dragons will win, actually, and I'll just be pleasantly surprised if the Rabbitohs win, but I've got the Dragons winning that.
All right. Well, the second match in Super Saturday for the NRL is the Cowboys playing the Sharks up there in Townsville. Will the Sharks have the same problem as the Panthers having the break?
No, I stand by the Sharks making the grand final. We will see the true test of the Cowboys. I don't think they've got the cattle, and I think that they just don't have the playmakers to trouble the Sharks. Nico Hines to star. I think the Sharks by about 10 points.
Okay, and if ever you were going to play at Bruce Stadium, you'd want to be playing in March on a Saturday night because it's better than playing in June or July at Bruce Stadium.
That's it. I think the Broncos, though, will win that. They're still my tip to win it all. They're a great team to watch, and they have too much talent and firepower. The Raiders were very impressive last week. Some were even saying they might win the comp. I thought that was a bit out there, but the Broncos will win that.
Paul, it just surprised me. The bookies currently got the line at 13.5. I thought it might have been a bit closer than that, but clearly the bookies are agreeing with you that the Broncos are the real deal.
They are at every area. I think the Raiders managed to get away with one last week and a real pounding of the Warriors. That might have been the Warriors had a big time in Vegas, who knows? But I think the Broncos will really put some on the Raiders today. They're just a good team, very good team.
Okay, Sunday's games. Eels, who started horrendously against the Storm, playing the West Tigers, who were beaten by Newcastle in round one, but showed some good signs. I think West Tigers would be looking, if they don't win this one, their season's starting to slip away, isn't it?
It will be. I think they'll win this. Just a question mark, though, about Lachlan Galvin, who's one of the best young talents in the game. There's talk that he might be going to the Eels to replace that void that Dylan Brown left. So if that happened, it would be a massive shame because he is probably the best young player in the game. Him and Luai together, fantastic to watch. They'll be too good for the Eels today.
All right. So. And the second game tomorrow, the Bulldogs playing at their traditional home of Belmore against the Titans, who haven't played yet. So we've got no form to run the Titans, but former coach coming up against his old team.
It is, and I think that the Dogs will win that. It's a great ground, that one, Belmore, where the train drivers stop the train to have a look at the footy for a bit. It's about as old school at footy as you can get. They have even the local council has a tooting the horn ban because the local fans were getting a bit rowdy on the horns when the Dogs win. But I think they'll be on their horns tomorrow afternoon.
All right, Paul. Well, thanks for joining me again in this NRL update, and I'll look forward to talking with you NRL next week.
Good stuff. Thank you.